Did you know that San Francisco was once called the Belfast of North America? And no, it's not because of the city's Irish American population. This happened in the 1970s. At the time, Northern Ireland was embroiled in a conflict between the British state, the Irish Republican movement, and loyalist paramilitaries known as the Troubles. The city of Belfast was the center of this conflict and as a result experienced near daily bombing and shooting attacks. During a seminar on bombings that took place in 1977, an agent from the FBI's San Francisco office, Frank Daniel, described the San Francisco Bay Area as the Belfast of North America. This was because the area had seen numerous acts of political violence and was home to several militant organizations. At the time of the seminar, San Francisco had suffered attacks from at least 7 paramilitary groups. These included the infamous Symbionese Liberation Army, most notable for its kidnapping of Patty Hearst, and the New World Liberation Front, one of the most prolific left-wing groups of the era, responsible for over 80 attacks. At the height of the militant campaign, there was an average of 1 bombing per week, and police estimated that some 200 militants were active in the area. Other outfits included the Environmental Life Force, the first ever environmentalist militant group in the United States, the Red Guerrilla Family, and the Chicano Liberation Front. The atmosphere of political violence was unique in the United States at the time. While the anti-Vietnam War movement had led to attacks across the country, the only region where the attacks were particularly concentrated was the Bay Area. By 1972 as well, Vietnam-related political violence was on the decline. However, the Bay Area militant groups continued their campaigns well into the late 1970s. There's a profile of one of the main groups behind this, the New World Liberation Front, on the project's website, which is undergroundamerica.weebly.com. You can also find a map of incidents of political violence in 1975, which gives you a good idea of the situation. I'm working on adding more to the website when I have the time to do so eventually there will be more profiles and maps, and I'll actually buy a domain name. If you enjoyed this though, follow for more stories of America's underground.